tell me that most of the time, during escapes, the convicts would usually only hurt people they happened